Well, there was anti-German sentiment, but there was also a strong desire on the part of most of the German Americans to go the extra mile to demonstrate their Americanness. I mean, you're on the cusp of a really important issue and a really important cultural change that occurred in central Missouri during this time period. I grew up in one of those German communities where, in my generation, 5 generations removed from Germany, people still spoke German. But in the up to the World War I era, there was close contact between the ancestors back in Germany. Many of these people came in the 1850s or 60s from Germany. So 2 or 3 generations later, when World War I comes, many of these people still had contact with their German ancestors. When the war came, much of that contact was severed. And in many cases, it wasn't reestablished until the 1980s or 1990s. The Germans, first, second, third generation Germans, were faced with a dilemma. And I would argue that they defined themselves as Americans first and as German Americans second. And they took great pains to prove that. Some of these German communities, for example, excelled at purchasing war bonds as a way of proving their citizenship, their commitment to the United States. That notwithstanding, there were some communities in which there was hostility toward Germans. I recall reading about an incident in a town not far from where I grew up, where this guy was physically abused and forced to pledge allegiance to the flag and kiss the flag because it was thought that because he had a German name, that he was thought to be disloyal, but in fact he wasn't. So again, the point I'm making is that there was tension. There was a church in Jefferson City, a German Methodist church, for example, that simply closed its doors and never reopened. Closed its doors during the war and never reopened. I recall a family story from a very prominent family in Jefferson City. The descendants in this family told me that when the war started, the patriarch of the family was actually in Germany. He was born in Germany. He was home visiting. And when the war started, his son was sent over to retrieve him, bring him back. The patriarch was quite elderly. And the son gets over there, and he's almost drafted into the German army. And he had a very difficult time getting back to this country. There were still people in central Missouri who were first and second generation immigrants who were sending their children back to Germany for secondary education until the war came, because they thought the secondary schools in Germany were superior to those in Missouri and in the United States. That all ends with the coming of World War I. And so the World War I forces Missourians of German ancestry to make a decision. Are they Americans or are they Germans? And they decide that they're Americans. And they try to prove that by enlisting in the army, by buying war bonds out of proportion to their resources, and that sort of thing.